So we follow up our discussion of sophomore wide receivers with a discussion of sophomore running backs. The class not quite as good as the wide receiver class, but you know what? I'm going to give you a little optimism in just a second. We welcome you here to Fantasy Football today. We got the full gang. Adam here with Dave, Jamie, and Heath is about to hop on. I've got an email about mailbox height that I think he'll find interesting. But yeah, Bucky Irving, Tyrone Tracy, they were the only ones who really were must starts at any point as rookies last year, but that doesn't mean that the sophomore seasons won't be good. Good morning, guys. Heath has now joined the show, and what do we think? You know, what's interesting about this class is that these guys, they didn't really get their opportunities because running backs just stayed pretty healthy last year. James Conner stayed healthy, and James Cook stayed healthy except for one game, and then Ray Davis had a big game. Devon Achane stayed healthy, but when we look at this class, do we still see a lot of potential from this sophomore class? And that's obviously, the funny thing is Jonathan Brooks was the first guy drafted, and we probably don't see a lot of 2025 potential for him. But Dave, what do you think about the class?
I think it's okay. There's not a lot of players that I look at and say, these are going to be fantasy studs for 4+ years. I think we can get close to that with Bucky. I don't know if we can get there with anybody else. Maybe you can kind of like really squint hard and see it with Trey Benson. Maybe you cross your fingers with Jonathan Brooks. There's question marks about so many of these guys. It makes it really hard to view them as, all right, long-term, I don't think so. 2025, okay, now we can talk about, opportunities for Tyrone Tracy. Maybe Ray Davis sees his role increase a little bit. Maybe Isaac Guerendo elevates to the number 2 running back in San Francisco, which means by like week 7, he'll be the number 1 running back for San Francisco. Benson, maybe something there. Marshawn Lloyd, something there. But I think that's the rosiest I can get is there are a bunch of names for 2025 who can be draftable, not necessarily good for fantasy.
All right. This time last year, we had some enthusiasm about Chase Brown, for example, but he was a year 2 guy who didn't do much as a rookie. It just, for some of these guys, it just takes opportunity. All right. With that said, let's do some quick questions here. What do you like better as a value? What's up, Heath? You okay?
What's going on?
Oh, I saw your face. Did I miss something?
I don't think you missed anything at all. I think you're doing a fantastic job. I'm really enjoying the show.
Okay.
Who is Heath? He's saying nice things about Adam.
He's got this look on his face like he's going to bring the sarcasm sledgehammer today. All right, let's go to our first quick question. What's a better value? And this is based on the draft we did last week. Bucky Irving in round 2 or Tyrone Tracy in round 6?
Sell.
Bucky Irving around 2.
It's Bucky.
I like that. I mean, I don't like the sell answer necessarily, but I like the discussion we could have off of it. By the way, this is a 12-team PPR league. There's half PPR. Bucky Irving round 2, Tyrone Tracy round 6. You say sell, Heath.
Yeah, I think like Bucky in round 2 is fine. I think he could be a borderline RB1. I think the problem for a lot of this class, like you talked about, they didn't get opportunity because the guys in front of them didn't get hurt. The other problem is there's a class of running backs coming in that might have 6 guys that would have been RB1 last year. Like there's just enormous danger over the next month or 2 for these running backs.
Yeah, but you don't like Tracy in round 6. That's too early for you.
I think Tracy is one of the scariest ones because in round 6 is... I think he came out close to a borderline RB2 for me, a low-end RB2. But he's scary out for the obvious reasons. 1, the draft class I just said. 2, he did have the fumbling problems last year, and he wasn't exactly a workhorse running back or viewed as a workhorse running back coming into the year, coming into the NFL. So I think there's a real risk that the Giants still think they need their number 1 running back.
Tyrone Tracy Jr. was the number 16 running back per game in the last 13 games of the season. That was after 4 games of Devin Singletary. Singletary got hurt after that. Tracy was number 16 running back per game, but on pace for only 235 carries. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. Next quick question. Who is your RB3 in this sophomore class?
Trey Benson.
All right, I'll just throw out some other names. Jalen Wright.
It's Benson, Wright, and Guerendo for me, but it would be Benson ahead of the other two.
You could throw Braylon Allen in that mix
Yeah.
as well. As I have it ranked today, Guerendo is ahead of Benson.
And well, I mean, we'll see what the Raiders do. You might be able to throw Sincere McCormick in that mix.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, next quick question. Oh, sorry.
No, please continue.
Who other than Irving and Tracy could become a must-start running back without an injury to a teammate?
Without an injury?
Mm-hmm. You can say no.
I think if the Dolphins go back to what they did 2 years ago, it could be Jalen Wright.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I said McCormick.
I mean, is there a world where Kamani Vidal takes a step forward this offseason? The Chargers don't bring back Dobbins. I think Gus is a free agent too, so they don't even bother with Gus. And no, Gus could be a cap casualty. And then they don't draft at the position, and Vidal just falls into a huge opportunity. I'd say I'd lean heavily against that, but I guess it's possible.
I guess that same thing's possible for Audric Estime, right?
Yep.
Yeah, but they talk about adding a versatile player to the offense. They call it a joker, just somebody that can line up anywhere. And that could be a tight end. It could be a running back. I would imagine that there are enough running backs in this class, to your point, Heath, that would make Audric Estime pretty obsolete.
Right, but you can't make the argument for Vidal and not for Estime, right? Because you could say the same thing about Vidal. There's so many. I mean, Vidal didn't do anything. He's like
he had a big catch. He had one nice catch. Give him credit for one nice catch. Okay, he didn't do it.
He could be replaced though easily, but maybe they don't get replaced. Who is an injury away from being a fantasy star?
Guerendo,
Benson, Wright, Corum, Davis,
Braylon
Allen,
Will Shipley.
I don't know. That's what the appeal is of this class. It's the same exact thing as last year. They're handcuffs right now. By the way, here's our email of the day at fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. You want to send us an email? Hit us up at fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. That is the letter I. This is from Paul Garafa. The United States Postal Service requires that the bottom of a mailbox be between 41 and 45 inches above the road surface. The height is measured from the road surface to the inside surface of the mailbox or to the lowest edge of the mail entry. Also, mailboxes should be set back 6 to 8 inches from the curb or road edge. I just paid someone to fix my mailbox because I was too lazy to do it myself. Can we get an update, Heath, on your mailbox situation?
It's interesting. I called the company to replace my mailbox. So I'm getting a new mailbox after 3 decades at its current height. It is now it's now too low. It's shrinking. It's been there for 3 decades. It's set in concrete, so it's not actually shrinking. But yes, it will be replaced in 6 to 8 weeks. So I should only get 3 or 4 more letters before then.
How many do you think? How many inches higher is the new one going to be?
Well, I hope it's at least 5 inches higher.
Okay, that's what we need. We need 5 inches.
We're 5 inches short. I apologize to all the people over the years who have had to bend over to put my mail in the mailbox.
Well, I'm glad this problem is being resolved. Okay, FFT Dynasty. What can you tell us about that? A little bit more exciting than the mailbox situation.
Yeah. Did a one-man mailbag yesterday. Answered questions for about 30 minutes. And on Friday, we will be doing some sort of rankings or mock of the rookies. I'm writing today my pre-combine top 12 rookies for Dynasty purposes. And there will be 6 running backs in that class. I would imagine 6 running backs, or maybe 5 that I have ranked higher than anybody but Bucky Irving in last year's class.
I am working on a pretty big trade in the Bake Burger Dynasty League. I'm not going to give any details because 2 of you are in the league, but I'm working on it. I'm hoping that we can talk about it, that it can be executed and then you guys can tear it apart. But it would be good fodder for any show.
I received a really compelling email in that league about the ability for me to upgrade from Drake May to Jaden Daniels. So I was
Okay.
pretty excited about that. But then I
Well, that-
realized that I tore my team down so much last year that I need all those picks. So I don't think I'm going to do it.
Well, give
Okay.
us the parameters, Adam. You don't have to tell us the players or the
Yeah.
like. Is it draft picks or is it player? Like what? Just
Both.
talk.
Oh, it's both. Both.
Okay.
Uh,
You're trying to rebuild or you're trying to jump back
No.
into the trade?
Yeah, I want to get back into it. I don't want to rebuild anymore. I tanked this past year. I have the third pick. When you're quarterback needy and you have the third pick, it's just not in a super flex league. You know, it's not a great spot to be. I think Genty and Ward are going to be the first two picks, and then I'm not taking Sanders third, even though the Giants will. I'm not going to. All right, let's take a quick break here, and we have a lot of NFL Combine news and notes to get to, but when we come back, we're going to shine the spotlight on Bucky Irving and Tyrone Tracy and tell you what we think of them. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today.
Gives it to Jenkins for the championship. A 16 beats a 1. From sweet to elite to the Final Four.
We did talk about Bucky Irving a lot, I think, last week, but we're going to do it again. So Bucky Irving finished as RB20 per game, but from weeks 10 through 18, he was RB6 per game. He was on pace for not a ton of work, 264 carries, 51 catches, but quick math here, about 1,950 total yards and 11 touchdowns. He was unbelievable. Scored 16.3 or more PPR fantasy points in 7 of his last 8 games, including the postseason. So is everyone cool with Bucky Irving going in the middle of the second round where he went in our last draft?
Yes.
Yep. As of now.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't know that I'm going to be drafting him at like 18 or 19, but he belongs in round 2.
What's your hesitation with him?
Just I think the history of day 3 or UDFA running backs who have had really good rookie years and then kind of disappeared. And particularly the fact that he was a day 3 pick and there's going to be some day 3 running backs this year that in most years would have gone day 2, but there's just so many good running backs that there aren't enough teams that want to take them there. That was not the case last year at all. We talked all this time of year last year, we were talking about how it was a great wide receiver class, but a really, really weak running back class. I don't think anybody had a running back in the first round of their rookie mocks at this time of year. Jonathan Brooks maybe eventually got there in some formats. But the fact that he was a day 3 pick in a class that wasn't very good, it gives a little bit of pause. Now, the fact that they kept their head coach, I think Jamie and I have talked about this a lot. It seems like a lot of those guys that fall off, there's a coaching change. There wasn't a head coach change, but there was an offensive coordinator change.
Okay. Is anybody else bothered by that? Because Tracy and Irving both day 3 picks. Tracy was a 5th round pick, Irving a 4th round pick. And it definitely occurred to me. I mean, yeah, I think about Damian Pierce. I think about Ramondre Stevenson. Not that he had such a great rookie season, but just, has kind of teased us. I think about Kyron Williams on the other end of this. Go back to Alfred Morris, had a great rookie season. Jordan Howard, James Robinson. So is anybody
Kyron didn't have a big rookie season. So.
What's that?
Kyron didn't have a good rookie season.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'm sorry. He had carries as a rookie, did nothing. But is anybody bothered by this? By him being a round 4 pick?
I mean, look, you're gonna have to, nitpick players in certain regards, and so, in the case of, his pedigree, I don't think anybody expected him to be a workhorse running back right away. I think a lot of people thought that he would be more of a third down change of pace type of guy, and then maybe he can work into a bigger role. He still has competition. Rachaad White's not going to necessarily disappear, I don't think. So will it be more of what we saw when Bucky Irving was going, that Rachaad White was much more of a non-factor? I would hope that's the case, based on how things worked for the Bucs. Their run game was fantastic. And it did kind of coincide when he took off was, the injuries to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So, how does a new offensive coordinator going to sort of operate, especially if Godwin's back and now you have McMillan. And so is it a Baker Mayfield attack and, the run game sort of supplements, or is it a run based offense and the passing game sort of works alongside of it, so they did have a lot of success running the ball. He was a big part of it, but yes, there is a little bit of, okay, can he sort of disappear? Does somebody else emerge? You heard the new offense coordinator come in and still mention Sean Tucker's name too. So, could he also have maybe a role on top of the other two guys? Again, these are things that are minor concerns for me, but I still think it's something to sort of factor in. In the case of Tracy, I think Heath was alluding to this. The Giants just went through a season where they watched the running back leave that goes on to go for 2,000 yards, have an MVP campaign, win a Super Bowl. And do they want to sort of find that again if they have the ability to get that sort of workhorse type of running back? Tracy filled that role for them last year, but also is not necessarily something maybe that ownership wants. So this could be Brian Dable, Joe Shane. I said Jim Shane, get another wrong name. Joe Shane and Dable, going with one philosophy, and Mara kind of coming in and saying, no, I want a featured running back in a class that has several of them. So we'll see how they sort of attack the draft. I don't think free agency is going to be something that makes a lot of sense to replace Trey and Singletary, but can they go and maybe find somebody else that could be more of a Saquon Barkley type of player? Now that would probably be Genty and maybe another guy or two at the top of the list that can fill those sort of qualities. But to me, it's Genty or bust in terms of that comparison. But in any event, they could obviously, surprise us. This could be one of those teams like, oh, why did they draft a running back? And then, we sort of play it out as the season goes on.
Yeah. Look, if the running back in the 4th round is the best player available, they might take a running back, right? It's not like a huge investment.
But it could also be the 2nd round, if that's something that they deem.
I'd be surprised, but
I would too. But again, we're going to have 1 or 2 surprises on draft day that are like, oh, they didn't need that. Maybe they did.
Of course, Bucky Irving, back to him, was just so good. 5.4 yards per carry, just some of the best advanced metrics. He's very small though, Dave. We don't really talk about that, and perhaps he is not equipped for a full workload. I think we've kind of been alluding to that, but he did have, let's see, his last, 6 games, 25 carries, 15, 16, 20, 19, and then 17 in the playoffs. I don't know. What do you think about that? Do you think he gets close to a 300 carry pace?
If he keeps up the efficiency from last year, there's no doubt he will. And I think that's really what it comes down to with Bucky Irving is, can you really count on him to average over 5 yards per carry? Can you really count on, let me bring up his numbers on my computer real quick. He dominated. I have all the rookie numbers, all the running back metrics. He dominated that position. He had almost 1,000 rush yards after contact over the course of the season. Can he keep that up again? He had an explosive rush rate of 9.4%. That wasn't even best at his position among the rookies, but it was great. Can he do that again? Can he avoid 27? Can he have an avoided tackle rate of basically 28%, second best among rookie running backs? Can he do that again? And can he do all of that while still rarely seeing 60% of the snaps for the Bucs? He played 60% or more of the snaps in 3 games all year, including the playoffs. So I worry about that changing. I don't know if he's going to play. I don't think he's going to be used as a workhorse. I think the Bucs know that using multiple backs is a good idea. Rachaad White is certainly capable of being a guy that works in tandem with Bucky Irving. As a fantasy manager, I've got to be okay with Bucky Irving not being on the field 70% of the snaps. He might not even be there 60% of the snaps most weeks, just like he wasn't last year. And so it comes down to, does his rush efficiency dip by a full yard? Well, if he's 4.4 yards per carry and he's only getting, 240, 250 carries, that's still good. It's not amazing. Does he score as many touchdowns? He had 8 rushing touchdowns last year. I don't know if that's so good. I don't think that number can come back. But if he can,
you don't think he can get to 8 next year?
No, I think he might be able to. But I'm saying,
week 10,
if I'm making a pessimist case for it, I would say that if he's not as efficient, if it all falls down, he's going to be a bust. And so the question you really have to ask yourself with Irving is, can he keep up this efficiency? And I wouldn't look at, the history of other running backs and what they've done. I intend to study him. I happen to be a fan of the offensive line in Tampa, and I think that'll absolutely help him. I think it helped him last year. And if he just gets the opportunities that he had last year, same types of opportunities, I think the efficiency comes down a little bit, but not to the point where he's a total dud. But you've got to agree with me in order to take Bucky Irving in round 2.
This is a perfect time of year for the Bucky Irving discussion as well. Because I think if you look at what people thought of Bucky Irving last year in February and before the combine, they were a lot more excited. And then he went to the combine and he weighed in really light and he didn't run particularly fast. And everybody got scared. And he overcame all that, and it didn't seem to matter at all last year. But there's a reason. There's a reason that he fell. I think if his combine had been better, he may have been a day 2 pick, and this conversation may be a lot different.
How many running backs went before him?
6 or 7. I'll take a look. But
right. I kind of think that hand in hand with, Bucky Irving went in round 4. Watch out. I just feel like all the running backs last year were very much devalued.
He was the 6th running back. It was Brooks, Benson, Corum, Lloyd, Jalen Wright, Bucky Irving, and then Will Shipley. So yeah, he by the way, you mentioned the avoid rate. I just want to mention his college numbers. This is Bucky Irving's specialty appears to be avoiding tackles. In college, he had an elite avoid rate 2 years in a row, and then he backed that up. And he also, if you watch him, I watched a lot this morning. This guy is small, but he does not shy away from contact, which worries me a little bit. But he breaks a lot of tackles. He's a pretty physical guy. But like that, I think one of the differences between him and Tyrone Tracy. Tracy's not really a tackle breaker. He wasn't anyway as a rookie.
No.
But Irving is much more physical, even though he's smaller. Tracy, though, I think has better speed. You can see on some of his breakaway runs, he's pretty damn fast. I think he ran like a 4.40, somewhere around there.
Receiver.
He is a former receiver. Bucky ran a 4.55 40-yard dash. So, all right. So that's Bucky Irving. There are definitely some risks. You're not going to see a lot of running backs. Like he went back to back with Josh Jacobs, and you think about the role Rachaad White plays versus anyone else in that Packers backfield. And that's the difference, right? You don't have to worry about competition for a guy like Josh Jacobs. Who would you guys take, Bucky or Josh Jacobs?
Jacobs.
Bucky.
All right, let's go to Tyrone Tracy Jr. here. And the running backs that went around where he went in round 6 were James Conner, Brian Robinson Jr., Ramondre Stevenson, Travis Etienne, Aaron Jones, J.K. Dobbins. Pretty big run on running backs, actually. Connor, Tracy, Brian Robinson Jr., Ramondre, Etienne, Aaron Jones, J.K. Dobbins. Jamie, what do you think about Tracy amongst that group?
I think this is where he belongs, but I would take him ahead of most of these guys. I think you just look at opportunity and hopefully an offense that's going to be trending in the right direction. I still think the Giants' offensive line could be good. The tackles can stay healthy, and so that's a big if. But, if those two guys can stay on the field for an extended period of time and you have competent quarterback play with what Brian Daboll should be able to accomplish with this team, there's a lot to like about his situation because I think he could be a good pass catcher out of the backfield. I think he proved that he's a better talent than Devin Singletary. Keith brought up the fumbles. That's something he has to work on, but I think that comes with growing into the position and understanding what to do with that role because, again, converted college receiver going to the NFL as a running back, and showed that he can handle the position. I think can handle it well. So there's explosiveness. There's, hopefully an offense on the rise. That's the question, at least for me, the biggest question. But there are things to like about the situation. But again, as we've said, there's an opportunity here for the Giants to maybe add to this backfield because while Tracy did well as a rookie and Singletary has proven to be a competent running back, there's a franchise here, I think, after everything that's happened over the last couple of years, from Barkley's presence there to the loss of Saquon and what he did going to a rival, that we could see this franchise wanting to bring back that type of level of production from that position and maybe finding somebody in the draft.
Yeah, I think for the purposes of today's show, maybe we should not kind of talk about, they could add another running back. Because that could apply to just about anyone we discussed.
Yeah, no, I wasn't making that the case. I was just, kind of piggybacking on what Heath said.
But it's more likely that the Giants do something like that than the Bucks.
Yeah, I agree. But I think every other team that we're going to talk about today with these sophomore running backs could probably add a running, wouldn't be shocked if they added some competition.
Yeah, if you just make that blanket statement, then I think that pretty much it could apply to all of these guys. The difference is like a lot of these guys are being going to be drafted in round 8 or later as backup running backs anyway. So it's not like it's how much do you want to risk on Tyrone Tracy with that potential. The other thing is I don't really know who he is yet. His performances last year were so uneven in almost every regard. He had some stretches where he was really efficient as a rusher. He had some stretches where he was highly involved in the passing game. And he had some stretches where both of those things were completely awful. And the Giants are most likely still going to be one of the worst offenses in the NFL and have, I think, Adam, you probably know this better than I do, probably the most difficult schedule in the NFL next year.
I wouldn't know, but why would you say that?
Well, first off, they are the worst team in the NFC East, and they have to play the Eagles twice and the Commanders twice. But I think also if I remember correctly, and Dave can look at it right now, I think their divisional matchups are pretty awful next year as well.
NFC North, AFC West, and then Niners, Saints, Patriots.
It doesn't sound great. Yeah, no. Doesn't sound very good. And when they got blown out, I mean, you look at Tyrone Tracy and why he had a pretty low total of carries. There were 4 games last year where he had this was after the Devin Singletary injury. Mm-hmm. He had single-digit carries. He made 6-ish carries. And they got blown out in 3 of them. So there were definitely some game script issues there. I think the game that stands out to me, man, was that New Orleans game. New Orleans was an absolute joke of a run defense. And can you scroll down, Thomas, on Tyrone Tracy's player page? And this looked like such a great spot for Tracy. It was later in the year. It was like week 15-ish. We'll get to New Orleans. There it is, week 14. 16 carries for 45 yards. And it ends up being a good game, 19.3 yards, but 19.3 fantasy points. But
it was the catches.
Yeah, 16 carries for 45 yards against the Saints. This was a whole stretch. And his last 6 games of the year, he averaged.
Who was the quarterback that game?
I think Drew Lock. I mean, does it throw a dart at it? It doesn't matter. DeVito, Lock, whoever.
Can we erase the week 17, please?
Week 17, 20 carries for 59 yards against the Colts, right?
Yeah, but can we just move on from that one?
Colts DSD.
Yeah.
Anyway, what was I going to say? Yeah, he averaged 3.3 yards per carry in his last 6 games. He really slumped. I don't know what that was about. I don't know what to make of that, but there were actually some pretty damn good matchups in that stretch. So
it was Drew Lock in that game against the Saints. Lock was also their leading rusher that game. He had a quarterback rating of 48.6.
Well, and that could have been the rookie wall. He had 192 carries last year. His career high coming into last year was 113 carries. So
right.
He probably hit that mark.
Converted receiver.
Right.
Good point. All right. Well, all right. I'll finish with this. Would you rather have James Conner or Tyrone Tracy?
Conner.
I think it depends on the build of your team. I'd rather have Tracy.
I'll take Conner.
Brian Robinson Jr. or Tyrone Tracy?
Brian Robinson.
Tracy, as of now.
Yeah.
Ramondre Stevenson.
Another thing on Tyrone Tracy, he turns 26 years old this year.
Yeah,
during the season,
he's in his prime. Honestly, he's in his prime. That's a great. 26 is a great year.
That might be great, but this is year 3 of him as a running back.
I think if you're looking for a comp, it's Antonio Gibson. A guy that's got a lot of upside, converted receiver. He may never do anything significant in the league, but he could have some moments where he's going to be productive. This feels like such a team that's going to find somebody else.
Yeah, I don't like that Antonio Gibson comp. But what I've just
fumbles are dead on.
But he did not end up being a good running back. All right, we're going to take another break, get to some combine news, and of course, talk about all of the other relevant running backs, including Sincere McCormick, who might just be 3rd best. Who knows? We'll be right back on FFT.
Find our way back home.
All right, a lot of stories coming out of the combine. the Colts want to have an open competition at quarterback with someone who's not on their roster right now. So they want to bring someone in and make Anthony Richardson compete. And I don't
Did you
think
see what Chris Ballard said?
I think so.
About
What
it?
do you see?
That it doesn't have to necessarily be somebody that's stylistically the same. So it could just be a whole different player, which just the whole thing makes no sense.
You know, the thing about Richardson is like they've been pretty open about several things. Like his preparation wasn't really good enough. Chris Ballard, I think it was Chris Ballard, was saying he came into the NFL, didn't exactly realize the weight of the quarterback position. They're going to work on his mechanics. And I think there's been a mental side of it that Richardson hasn't mastered, just in terms of the preparation. So maybe that gives you some hope. It's not that he's such a bad player. It's that he has to prepare a little bit differently. Maybe.
I think according to the reports, he got the wake-up call when he got benched. So he started, being first guy in the building, those type of things that you like to hear, and staying late, doing more, film study, all those things. But it's sad that it maybe took that situation to, bring that to light. Look, he's got a very small window to hopefully maximize his earning potential and prove that he belongs in this league. And, that this may be his final chance. Maybe final chance for Chris Ballard too. The other thing that came out of what he said was they want to add a running back and a tight end. Tight end makes a ton of sense. Give some life to that position because it's been lacking for a long time in Indianapolis. But running back is interesting. Do they go and add somebody and make this an annoying situation for Jonathan Taylor?
Are they trying to add somebody to complement Taylor, or do they?
I would think more of a backup role because you pay Taylor. He was an MVP candidate 3 years ago. Didn't do anything wrong to I think warrant coming off the field very much. But their backup situation probably hasn't been ideal for the last couple of years, especially when he's battled injuries. So that makes more sense. I just was reading a story out of Indianapolis, and that was one of the notes they put. They said Chris Ballard's other needs that he addressed, or whatever he said, needs that he wants, was tight end, running back, and then stuff on defense.
Yeah. Again, going back to what Heath said earlier about the running back class, it's very deep. There's a lot of good players at running back. You're going to see teams that already have an established running back get another one because they're going to look at their draft board when they're on the clock in round 3, 4, 5 and say, this is the best player. He can help us. Let's get him.
Jamie, I have a question. In our Dynasty League, Superflex, I've made this trade offer before, and you turned it down, I'm pretty sure. I think it was this. Would you maybe it wasn't this. Sorry. Would you take the third pick of round 2 for Anthony Richardson?
No.
He could be Justin Fields. He could be out of a job in half a year.
Yeah, but there's no win for me in that regard to take the second round, take a pick in round 2 for a quarterback that still has top 10 upside.
Okay, but this is the 15th pick. It's not like a terrible pick.
There's zero chance anybody should even entertain that offer. It's an awful Azer offer. It's terrible.
It is not terrible.
It is 100% terrible.
Now, if you were giving me something with that pick, then it's a different conversation.
You anything?
I wouldn't take 2 of that pick. I wouldn't take 3 of that pick.
Well, like if he's in that league, I'm a competing team. So if he's giving me, let's say, a veteran quarterback that's still starting, to consider the upside of, and I don't know who that guy would be, but it's not like a Stafford type of player, but he wouldn't trade me Baker, but you get the point. Like, somebody that's a mid tier, like Jared Goff and that pick for Richardson with the hope that Richardson turn things around.
I was gonna say in the trade chart, the closest guy is Sam Darnold.
Right. Like I'm not doing that.
So the first 5 picks of round 2 last year in our rookie draft, Superflex rookie draft, were Ricky Pearsall, Ladd McConkey, Trey Benson, Keon Coleman, and Michael Penix Jr. Okay, so that's the caliber of player you could be getting with the
There's
third.
a 20% chance you could get a better player.
Well, first of all, I think I would take. I don't know who. Anthony Richardson's trade value is pretty tough, but I think no way would I take Trey Benson or Keon Coleman. I would absolutely take Ladd McConkey. Yep. I think I'd definitely take Michael Penix over him. Would I take Ricky Pearsall over him? It's very possible.
I would not take Michael Penix over Anthony Richardson.
I wouldn't either.
Obviously, there's a gamble here. I mean, Anthony Richardson could be completely useless by this time next year.
So could Penix.
Penix? I don't know. They invested a first round pick in him. They're going to just get away from him after one season.
Well, you're saying the same thing about the Colts after 2 seasons.
After 2 seasons, yes, and Richardson. No, but this would really be 3 seasons for Richardson compared to 1 for Penix. Penix 3 games. Well, I guess you said the same thing. Richardson got hurt in his rookie year, but Richardson's on thin ice. He's been horrible. He's been the worst quarterback in football, you could argue.
I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying, aside from the fact that you're making this as Penix is locked into being a guaranteed starter for 10 years when he's at the age that he's at with knee injuries.
I didn't say that. Much more secure than Richardson right now.
Right. One of those guys might not be starting in 2026.
One of those guys might not be starting in 2025.
One of those guys might not be starting in 2025. Fair.
Don't tell me it's a terrible trade offer. If you want to turn it down. That is not a terrible
awful trade offer.
It's not. Dave, give me some support here, please.
No, if you're just liquidating Anthony Richardson, you don't want him on your team anymore. You would hope to get that type of pick in return. But I think somebody who doesn't necessarily need a quarterback, maybe does in a super flex, would happily give up a round 2 pick for Richardson, knowing what his upside is.
Yeah,
Does it make you feel any better, Adam? His last 5 games when he came back from being benched, he averaged over 20 per game.
That's the thing. I know he's going to be a better fantasy quarterback than actual quarterback, but if he doesn't win enough games, if he turns the ball over, they're going to bench him. They're not going to say, well, he's scoring 24 fantasy points. They don't care. If he's completing 47% of his passes, he's done. So there's so much downside with Anthony Richardson.
I just think that, like, basically you're saying what could happen to Anthony Richardson is what did happen to Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Justin Fields' value is not 0 right now.
Is Justin Fields
way worse than the 15th overall pick?
Yeah. Would you take Justin Fields for the 15th overall pick?
Well, he's already had the thing happen to him.
Yeah.
I think the 15th overall pick is definitely worth Richardson's floor. I agree. You're just not accounting for his ceiling.
Richardson's floor is worth a
and no one's going to pay for the ceiling, though. That's the point.
No, I get it's a little bit of a low ball offer. I just don't think it's an awful trade offer. I don't even think you know what? I think it's a fair offer. And I think Justin Fields has been a better NFL quarterback than Anthony Richardson, pretty indisputably.
He's played like 13 and a half games.
That's another problem, isn't it? He can't stay healthy. All right. Buffalo and Khalil Shakir agreed on a 4-year deal worth up to $60.2 million with $32 million guaranteed, according to ESPN. Khalil Shakir contract extension. The Chiefs expect Travis Kelce to play in 2025. They're also optimistic about retaining guard Trey Smith, and they want to bring Hollywood Brown back. You're definitely going to get a lot of people, general managers, saying, oh, we love this guy. We want to bring everyone back right now. Speaking of which, the Buccaneers they want to give Chris Godwin a contract extension. So they spoke glowingly of Chris Godwin. They want to bring him back. The Bengals intend to make Jamar Chase the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL, and they also want to get a long-term deal done with T. Higgins. The Steelers want to get a deal done with Wilson or Fields before free agency starts. And they will tender Jalen Warren, and they could re-sign Najee Harris. Again, bring everyone back. Differences of opinion on Travis Hunter. Cleveland GM Andrew Berry sees him as a wide receiver first, whereas Tennessee head coach Brian Callahan sees him as a cornerback that they would use at times on offense.
Browns have a lot of cornerbacks already on their roster. If they were to get Travis Hunter, they would use him more as a wideout. You can't, and maybe he falls in the draft, but you can't take a guy that you think is going to play corner all the time and just occasionally help at wide receiver as a top 3 or 4 pick, right? Like, nobody drafts a corner that early.
I would say the opposite. I would say you can't draft a wide receiver with a top 3 pick that you're only, like, cornerback is a more premium position than wide receiver.
Why don't get
both teams trying to drum up trade interest?
Didn't we go 3rd, by the way, or 4th?
How much do the top corners make?
Not as much as the top wide receivers.
So why is our corner a more premium position?
Yeah, I was thinking
because they cover the wide receiver.
In the middle of my sentence, I didn't really agree with myself. Derek Stingley went in the 3rd with the 3rd pick, but it used to be that way. But the wide receiver market has exploded.
Right.
I don't know. What do you think? I think corner. I don't know. I don't think I guess there's not a big difference to me.
The NFL thinks that wide receivers are more valuable.
The top cornerback last year was Jalen Ramsey at $24.1 million a year. The top wide receiver, Justin Jefferson, $35 million a year.
It's a big.
The NFL has spoken.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, there's at least 10 wide receivers that made more than Jalen Ramsey last
It's basically
year.
tackle versus guard.
Doesn't really seem to make sense though.
Travis Hunter wants to be a wide receiver.
But isn't he going to the combine as a corner?
Yes.
Yeah, but he wants to be paid like a wide receiver.
Aaron Rodgers reportedly, according to the New York Daily News, prefers the Rams, and he would bring Devontae Adams with him. Meanwhile, the Raiders are, according to the Las Vegas Review-Journal, interested in Matthew Stafford. Diana Rossini of The Athletic says the Rams are comfortable with Jimmy Garoppolo as their starting quarterback.
Sure.
What is happening?
I got him in the Superflex League, and he's going to be more valuable than Anthony Richardson soon.
What are the Rams doing?
No.
I'm not going to doubt the Rams. They seem to know what they're doing. The Commanders have granted Jonathan Allen permission to seek a trade, or defensive tackle. Eagles' new offensive coordinator, Kevin Patullo, is going to call plays in 2025. The Packers expect Christian Watson back sometime around mid-season. Jaguars GM James Gladstone thinks that Brenton Strange will have a bigger role in the offense, and Gladstone will be graduating high school at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Seen him? He's the
His
youngest.
dad, Joey Gladstone, was a popular comedian in San Francisco in the early 90s.
Do you think James Gladstone would draft a wide receiver in round one? I think he would. Thank you, Dave. Thank you.
Cut it out.
Xavier Legette had foot surgery. The Ravens intend to keep Mark Andrews. They're optimistic about signing Ronnie Stanley, their left tackle. Ashton Genty will not work out at the NFL Combine, which bothers me a little bit.
Why? Why does that bother you?
Because it reminds me of Marvin Harrison. I feel like if Marvin Harrison had gone to the Combine, he would not have
Worked
been
out. He wouldn't have been the first receiver taken.
That's what I think, right? And it's like, did he know something?
No, most of the time these guys just want to protect themselves. He could work out at his pro day. They know what he is. Not working out at the combine is not that big of a deal.
Well, I want his 40 time. That's what I want
You-
for Genty.
It's probably out there on the internet.
You'll get it as pro day.
Yeah, I don't want to wait that long. The 49ers promoted Clay Kubiak to offensive coordinator, and ESPN's Jordan Renan said,
Kubiak have.
yeah, I know, right? According to ESPN's Jordan Renan, multiple leagues insiders think the Giants have their sights set on Shedeur Sanders. And I have my sights set on a new team for 2025. All right, let's talk. What'd you say?
No, you don't.
I'm going to be so upset.
I'm just so excited for Dion to be the coach in 2026.
Okay, let's talk about the other guys. Aside from being a hilarious,
Oh, we're
underrated.
going back to the sophomore running backs.
Yeah.
I thought we covered the class.
Go ahead.
we didn't talk about them all.
Did we see any players that are? Let me tell you something.
Hmm?
James Cook was not a top 40 running back as a rookie. Okay,
He was not.
I think that's all I've got.
Kyron.
Neither was Kyron Williams.
Kyron Williams, that's right, 35 carries as a rookie. Things happen, and we just need opportunities.
I think that the interesting thing with these guys is similar to this incoming class, except these guys are just more talented. But we've said it already. Like, there were a lot of good running backs that just ended up playing behind players that did not give them opportunities to showcase their skills, or they got hurt, like in the case of Marshawn Lloyd. But like Blake Corum doesn't compare to the high-end guys in this class, but never got an opportunity really. Trey Benson never got an opportunity really. Braylon Allen, Ray Davis, their opportunities were minimal, so Jalen Wright never really got an opportunity, so it's going to be interesting to see when those guys do get opportunities this year, if they are still second on their team's depth chart, can they succeed? Because like Benson playing behind a 30-year-old James Conner, like there's an easy path for him getting on the field. Jalen Wright's path has now been cleared because Raheem Mostert's been cut by the Dolphins. Kyron Williams was relatively healthy the majority of last season, but he dealt with injuries each of the first 2 years of his career. So can he, miss 4 games like he did in his second season when he was a breakout running back, and then maybe Blake Corum, sort of runs away with it. You mentioned the one game for Ray Davis, Braylon Allen, who knows if he gets on the field, so there's some opportunities here for some of these guys that, again, good players, not superstars potentially, but I mean, look what Guerendo did in the couple of chances that he got. He had, I think it was 5 games with double-digit carries, and 4 of them he was like 11 PPR points or more. So, did have the opportunity to prove himself in a small sample size, and clearly on a great team that features those type of opportunities for that position. But Jalen Wright's in one in particular that is very intriguing to me just because of his speed.
Is Jordan Mason a free agent? What's his situation?
He's a restricted free agent.
Jordan Mason was better than Guerendo in basically pretty much every metric. And he played ahead of Guerendo, right? I mean, he was the preferred option. So we have to see if they bring him back.
Well,
but
keep in mind how everything started for them in the offseason. Elijah Mitchell was ahead of both of them.
Also true. Some roadblocks here for Isaac Guerendo.
Well, Mitchell's a unrestricted free agent.
Yeah, Mitchell won't be there. Mason will probably be there. They're going to low tender him, and I'd be shocked if another team paid him to come in, especially, again, considering the draft class, considering the other free agents.
I also think if you're the 49ers, like, you're not going to let those 2 guys leave. You're not going to let Mason leave with Mitchell gone and McCaffrey being in the situation that he's in.
So what does that cost, Dave, on the low tender? Because if you really like this,
I don't have that. I've got to look it up.
If you really like this draft class, couldn't you save a couple $1 million and let Mason go and just take a running back on day 3?
I'll have to look it up and see. I guess that's a possibility. But again, why would they do that when Mason was so good for them last year?
I would like to see more from Trey Benson. He really got only 63 carries, but he averaged 4.6 yards per carry, same as James Conner. Really good avoid rate, very low rate of carries for 0 or negative yards. Fantastic rate of carries for 5 or more yards. The underlying metrics were good for Benson. You can't make too much of it. It was only 63 carries. But when I looked further into, like Ray Davis, Braylon Allen, Audric Estime, I didn't really see these guys. I mean, the numbers bear it out. They didn't really make a lot of big plays. Audric Estime had 76 carries, and one of them went for more than 13 yards. It was a very weird 21-yard gain where basically they thought he was tackled. They stopped playing, and he kept going. Braylon Allen had 92 carries. He had 1 carry longer than 12 yards, which is weird because I thought Braylon Allen looked pretty good. He only averaged 3.6 yards per carry, but I don't know. I felt like he looked good out there on the field. I don't know if anybody shares that opinion. Some of his biggest plays came in the passing game. But these guys, they got their chances and they kind of showed what they were in college. They were kind of big bruisers, not runaway players. Benson, on the other hand, we know, everyone said he's the Ken Walker of this class. He's the boomer bust, could hit a home run on any play. So that still exists for Trey Benson. And hopefully he gets the opportunity. Jalen Wright also. Jalen Wright definitely could be more explosive than some of these other guys. What do we think about Sincere McCormick? And what do you think about McCormick and Estime? Who do you think has a better chance of being the starting running back for their team?
Oh, goodness.
Well, McCormick, if you want to say, good moments as a rookie, like whole new coaching staff coming in, like that's not ideal for him, especially the way that he got his chance when everybody was injured.
Yeah, he was pretty good, though.
He wasn't bad.
Yeah.
And he's cheap, so Pete Carroll and the new staff there might look at him and say, okay, we'll keep him at least on the roster and see how he does. And Pete Carroll's the kind of coach that if you're the best guy, you're going to play. Doesn't matter how you came into the league. I'll say that 6 more times between now and the start of the season. But that's just how he is. And if McCormick can adapt, then he might be the more talented running back than Estime. Estime feels like more of a plotter than anything else.
It's my favorite soundbite. I'm sorry, the dog.
Ruff, ruff. I'm in the middle of making a point and you're playing the dog bark?
Well, Jamie's dog is barking, so I don't know. I wanted him to have some
They're
cover.
cutting down a tree behind my house, so the dog's going crazy.
There's a dog across the street from me that
Did
just,
you get HOA
we are
approval
giving
before you cut down the tree?
important information on Sincere McCormick versus Audric Estime, and you are resorting to morning zoo antics on our show. We are the award winners for best audio show in an enterprise field, and this is what you do, Adam. This is
isn't that right, Mr. Scream? Sorry.
You
You know that reference? All right.
I've got the tender offers for Jordan Mason, Heath. I don't know if you care.
I do. Definitely.
Lowest number would be 3.3 million. Second round value is 3.5. First round value is 7.5. Basically, being a restricted free agent means your current team can either push you into free agency and let you go, have a nice life, or they can give you a 1-year contract offer at 3 different levels.
Like
the levels vary based on what compensation it would take from another team to sign you away. So the 49ers, let's just say they put the first round compensation on Mason. He's guaranteed $7.5 million. And if another team wanted to sign him, they would have to give up a first round pick for Mason.
No
So
chance.
if they really wanted to lock him up, they would commit $7.5 million to him.
No chance.
Right. But if they think that a team wouldn't even give a second round pick for Mason, then they'll
He's
give
getting
him
the lowest tender.
refusal.
He's getting the lowest tender.
I think the lowest tender, but I'm just saying, like, if I had the 49ers and I had Christian McCaffrey and Isaac Guerendo on my team, and there were maybe 15 running backs in this class that had the pedigree of a Jordan Mason, I would not pay $3 million to keep Jordan Mason.
Well, it's also their MO is they usually spend a day 3 pick on a running back almost every draft.
Yeah.
And so, that they can still do both. Again, they have to start thinking post McCaffrey life anyway. And Guerendo's 24 and Mason is probably mid-20s. They're losing Elijah Mitchell, so they may just do it again because just add to
All
it.
right, we got a couple of comments from the chat. Aaron Starr says, I waited all podcasts to hear about my Bronco boy Audric, and Adam breaks my heart. Did I break your heart just because I said he doesn't run away from anybody? I'll give you this. He had 2 carries inside the 3-yard line. He scored on both of them. He should probably be their goal line back. Unfortunately, Bo Nix takes some of those as well. Javonte Williams is a free agent. They expressed some interest in bringing him back, but it could just, I don't know why they would. I think there's reason to be. Estime is not going to catch passes. He might be like a Gus Edwards not that bad, but he might be like a 25 catch guy, or it's going to be bad.
He might be a young Gus Edwards.
But right, like he could fill a role, right? Does anybody want to be a little optimistic about Audric Estime?
He could absolutely fill a role. And in the matchups where we think Denver will play with a lead and possibly have one of those short yardage opportunities, you could start Audric Estime as a bye week running back. Maybe even like a number 3 running back.
Could be the Mark Ingram and the Sean Payton offense at best.
At best.
That is the ceiling.
Sure.
Someone also said, isn't the Miami offensive line problematic? And
yes,
it was last year. It's going to have some new faces this year.
Well, it sounds like they're moving on from Teron Armstead, who might retire, and then that's been their best offensive lineman. So it's got to be a big point of emphasis. So I would imagine if they're shopping Tyreek Hill, they're probably looking to either acquire a lot of assets to get draft capital for offensive line help, or maybe trading for an offensive lineman or 2 or 7.
I got one email from Jerry O. I've got a middle of the pack team. My wide receivers are decent. Brian Thomas, London, Addison, Shakir, DK Metcalf, Jerry Jeudy. It's pretty good.
That's not middle of the pack.
No. It's middle of the pack if there's 4 teams in your fantasy league.
My running backs are trash. I also have pick 103. Would it be worth trading 103 and Jeudy or Shakir for 101?
Yes.
Yep.
Very, very quickly.
Or would you rather trade back for multiple picks and get some of the young running backs?
I want to go get Ashton Genty if I can.
I think both are applicable, but I agree with Heath. I think if you can get the best player, especially if you have that type of receiving core, and that's all you're giving up, so you're moving up 2 spots and you're giving up one of those receivers, which in the case of both could easily be not fantasy relevant to the level that you need. Yes.
Let me just for fun ask you this. He's got 103. Which wide receivers would you be willing to package with 103 to get 101? Brian Thomas Jr.
No.
Drake
Too much.
London.
No.
Maybe.
Jordan Addison.
Yes.
DK Metcalf.
If I had to.
DK for sure.
Yep.
DK for sure.
All right, so just definitely not Thomas and probably not London. The other ones go for it. All right. That's it for fantasy football today. We're
You
going to
might be able
do
to do two of them too. Like,
instead of pick 103.
no, 103 and two of those. I mean, look, if you feel like Genty puts you over the top, then you do it.
All right, we're going to do FFT Express. We'll be back tomorrow with Justify It as we look at the results of a recent mock draft. Thanks so much for watching and listening, FFT. Talk to you tomorrow.